Can the science and art of storytelling actually help revive a dying industry? This industry is going through a very painful death experience.
I think that is one of the reasons that the switching to OTT was so simple.
I would certainly use the 4 action framework based upon the film that I'm actually marketing. So
True.
how can we change the theater experience?
So whatever you think is very obvious right now, completely switch it.
In this episode, what we're going to do is look at whether the theater industry can be revived through maybe a story like Treasure Island. Let's go. So, Jahnavi, when was the last time you actually went to a theater and saw a film?
I went on my birthday. I went to see the Bengal Files. I think this was a movie I had watched in theater after like maybe 2 years. I think the last
Wow.
movie that I watched was Kashmir Files.
Oh, okay. There's an emerging pattern here as far as Jahnavi is concerned. But which theater did you go to? And why did you go and see this film on your birthday? What was there any special significance to it?
Yeah, so I went to PVR Inox, and why I watched on my birthday, because this is whenever it comes to a patriotic activity, this is the one thing that the entire family is very much happy to do.
Okay.
Even my grandfather, who's 90 years old, right, he never goes out of the house, not even for a walk, not for nothing. He was extremely enthusiastic to go to the theater and sit 3 hours to watch this film. So
And how was your experience? How was your experience over there? Did you enjoy it? And did you enjoy the film, the theater? What was it all about?
Yeah, so we got the recliner chairs. The entire last row we booked for this. I don't watch every movie in the theater. I'm not that sort of a person. But this was one of those movies that, gets the maximum impact when you see it on a bigger screen. And not just the bigger screen, the effects are there. It's the attention with which you watch the movie. If I'm watching the same movie at home, I might switch between the channels a lot of times, or half the time I might be on my phone, right? But in the theater, 100% of the attention goes to the movie. And I think that is one of the reasons that maybe me and my family, in fact, reserves the special movies or the great movies for the theater experience.
Interesting. So I have many things to complain about what you call a great film. However, if I have to swap stories with you and try to figure out when was the last time I saw a film, it was in the UK, and it was because of a family member. So there is a pattern here. The family member wanted to see Mission Impossible, the second part, which I have no idea why, but clearly said family member was a Tom Cruise fan. We also had recliner seats, which I took full advantage of because I probably slept through some of the film. I think, however, I'd seen part one, which was on some OTT platform, and part two, which I saw in the theater, and I could actually see the difference between part one and part two, because this kind of film, even though it is nowhere great, this kind of film was way more enjoyable because it was in the theater. So what was the most enjoyable thing, and what was the most painful thing?
The best part, the good part was, again, the attention, right? I watched the entire movie with 100% attention, without my thoughts getting deviated even once, from start to the end. That is also because the movie was a historical drama, right? So but also because the ambience is like that. There's a pin drop silence apart from the movie. Everybody's watching the movie with a very rapt attention. So you do the same thing somewhere, right? The worst part was, I would say, having to sit in an air conditioned hall for 3 hours without being able to move around.
Yeah, no, interesting that you say. So here is where we differ. I think the most enjoyable part of the film was before the film, all those trailers that I was seeing, okay, and all those ads that I was seeing, because I really enjoyed the ads, and I really enjoyed the stupidity of the ads, and I really enjoyed the trailers, because I got to check this one, I got to check that one. So that was fun, and I think trailer making is quite an art, and it really captures a huge amount of the essence of a film, and it's just an enjoyable experience. I think the most enjoyable experience in that whole film, besides those one or two scenes that I was talking about, was in the time just before the film started, and that was really enjoyable. I also saw it in Battersea Power Station, which has a historical element. So they have a clip which just talks of the way in which the Battersea Power Station was created and its history and stuff like that, which was fun to watch too. The most painful, and trust me, this is the UK, so I think theaters in India are way better than theaters in the UK in general, but the most painful thing of the experience for me was the really expensive popcorn. Right, the popcorn was extremely expensive and kind of stale. And in the UK, you can get gin and tonics and some other assorted beverages which you may not necessarily get in India. But the fact is that they were just useful in sedating me rather than actually making me come alive for that experience. So they were also expensive, and I think that is really something which is probably the worst and the most painful part of the whole experience.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that this industry as a whole is seeing a lot of decline. I was checking out why people don't watch movies anymore. It's not just about the movie tickets, which in itself are getting very expensive, right? It's also the refreshments. Naturally, when you're watching a movie, you want to chill around. Whatever kind of movie that is, whether you're watching with your family or with your friends, you want some kind of refreshments. I mean, think about it. One movie on Netflix, you're either having dinner, or you're having a beer, or you're going in the kitchen and having at least a packet of chips, right? You will do that. It's only natural. And any theater company is is banking on that experience, and
Yeah,
you have to pay like thousands of bucks only for that one packet of popcorn. It seems very stupid, right?
yeah.
And if you don't buy it, then that sort of mars your experience. There is some kind of FOMO, some kind of sensory
You
FOMO.
got to take part in this.
You
Yeah.
got to do that. So at least in the interval, even if not in the beginning, in the interval, you'll end up standing in that long goddamn line and getting that popcorn that will empty you for your month's budget, right?
I'll
And
tell you.
it's
I'll
really
tell you one more problem. I'll tell you one more problem that I've got
yeah.
with the whole thing, and I think it. I believe that it has got a lot to do with what you said about attention,
Hmm.
right? So I'm not used to paying so much of attention,
Mhm.
right? Because of the whole tech thing. And the second thing that I realized was I'm not used to taking enforced breaks like the interval break, right?
Hmm.
I'm used to taking breaks when I want to take a break rather than
Right.
when the interval happens. And so that's really something that is a deviant nature of the theater now because of the technological things. Also, just some loudmouth is always talking in the whole movie experience, which is a problem. The second thing is if you want to go to the loo, it becomes quite a hassle,
Yeah.
especially in the middle of a film
Right.
when you want to escape. So I just forgotten about all these inconveniences when I was seeing this film, and I was reminded of all of those inconveniences. Perhaps because it was not, something which it was not a movie that I would have chosen to go to. So
Yeah.
it's quite a possible. So I was probably having more of a theater experience than a film
Yeah.
experience, if you
Even,
know what I'm
even
saying.
even if you like the movie, there's in the back of your mind, there's always these kind of inconveniences going. Now imagine if the same movie that you're watching at your home, at right in the middle of the movie, my grandfather would probably be telling us the story about the partition because he went through the entire Bengal partition, all of that. He saw right there, and that though his stories would probably be much more interesting than the movie itself. But we couldn't do that, right? So, and somewhere the entire experience was marred because at the back of the mind you were hungry, back of the mind you were freezing cold, you just wanted to go to the washroom or something was happening, right? And I think that is one of the reasons that the switching to OTT was so simple and happened
Hmm.
so rapidly because it was
Yeah.
very convenient. You could do it at your home. There was absolutely no friction. Like
Hmm.
199 a month is absolutely no friction when it comes to
Yeah.
having to go out, spending at least 5 hours, 2 hours in the traffic, then 1 hour in that stupid queue for the popcorn, and then spending so
Yeah.
much.
Let me ask you a different question then. Would you have gone for this film with a different set of people, or just by yourself, or just with one more person? And the second question is, would you have enjoyed it as much?
No, not this film. I think for
Hmm.
this film, the perfect setting was the family because everybody
You all like that. Yeah, you
we
all
all
like
love
that
this
sort of.
genre.
Hmm.
Probably, I mean, for me, I always choose the set of people that I go to with the movie. Like for example, the Marvel movies, I never go with anybody else because I know that some idiot
Oh.
will always start talking in the middle, and I want to watch the entire film, right? And so we always choose the kind of circle that we go to see a particular movie because it's not just the theater. The environment around us, the people around us, somewhere it can
Yeah.
either mar the experience or make it even more enjoyable.
Okay, so let's keep that in mind when we analyze this industry, right?
Yeah,
If you're trying to analyze, what this situation is, and if we have to revive this industry, because this industry is going through a huge amount of pain,
yeah,
right? Especially in India, I don't think the footfall in the theater has reduced. The kind of people who are advertising even before the film starts has kind of changed quite dramatically. I'm sure that the prices have dropped, and which is why the price of popcorn has gone up. It's quite likely that this industry is going through a very painful death experience. And
yeah.
if you had to revive something like this, I was wondering, what are the features that make something like this an enjoyable experience? So I'll tell you what I've thought about so far based upon this conversation. The
Yeah.
first is that it's a community sort of thing,
Yes.
right? Because you're going with a certain set of people, or you're very choosy about the kind of experience that you're trying to have. So that's certainly there. The second thing is, that it's an enforced break kind of, which wherein it'll help you pay the right kind of attention for the right kind of movie.
Your community angle is bang on point, right?
Hmm.
Now let's draw a parallel. McDonald's was not working until it
Hmm.
became a family restaurant,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And the reason and
Good one.
whatever the reasons that it was made into a family restaurant to bring in the right kind of audience or whatever. But till this date, even if at least the Indian families, they're not a big fan of burgers and any Western kind of cuisine, right?
Yeah.
But whenever you say at home, let's order a McDonald's, everybody is somehow very ready for it because
Yeah.
it's in our head. It's a community thing. It's a family thing. It's something that brings the families together, even if it's not happening at the restaurant per se. And
Yeah.
movies initially, they were always a family thing. Even, I mean, you must remember it much better, right? In the olden days when there was the old theaters, balcony, and all that used to be there, right? It wasn't a mall experience. It was a theater. Sorry, don't look at me like that.
Yes, thanks for
I know
calling
I
me
called
old.
you old. I'm sorry.
Twice old and old. Yeah, okay, all right.
Right, yeah, but I mean, it used to be something that the entire family would go together with, or the best of friends would go together. It used to be an experience. It wasn't something that just did it for the movie. You never went to the theater for the movie. Right now, we don't even give a damn about what movie is playing. Going out to watch
Mm.
theater is more of an experience, more of an event that you plan. So
It's
I
so interesting that you called me old, and therefore I was reminded of my time as a child. For me, for the longest time, as a child of the 70s and early 80s, the only film that I was going to see in the theater was an Amitabh Bachchan film. So therefore, it was all conflated towards, okay, Manmohan Desai, Amitabh Bachchan, masala film, and in the theater with the family, and it's an outing, right? So all of these things were combined together, and the film itself was, something that you were looking forward to as an event
Hmm.
rather than something which was, I suspect that the law of diminishing marginal utility, there's so many movies, there's so much of content that each individual piece of content, it's extremely difficult to stand out,
Yeah.
especially because of OTT. And I think that is the biggest problem, which is why you see that we are very, very selective when we are seeing these films. And therefore, you'll go for a Harry Potter film, or you might go for the Avengers series or anything of that sort, because that kind of becomes an event. And that probably is definitely a part of the analysis.
Hmm.
I would certainly say, I would add to a couple of points that you made. I love the example of the McDonald's thing. I think that there is a lesson there. I think another lesson is when you're looking at the film itself and the way in which you're experiencing the film for the moment you step into the theater, right? So I don't think that theaters are literally taking this into consideration. If I look at horse racing, okay, you took McDonald's, I'll take horse racing. If I look at horse racing became a hobby. Before that, horses were a mode of transportation.
Hmm.
But then when it becomes replaced by cars, then it just shifts from being transportation to hobby,
Yeah.
and to therefore horse racing, and therefore there's a gamified element to it. And there are a lot of lessons here when it comes to actually looking at films and theater and stuff like that, because then you're suddenly saying, okay, this is something which is not going to be mainstream anymore. It is a niche thing.
Yeah.
Besides it being a niche thing, you have to treat it very specially, as if it's a gamified experience, maybe, and it is something which is like an event, and
Hmm.
it is a hobby, or it is something like a special treat.
Yeah.
Another example is that this hidden room or secret room, I forget the name of the goddamn thing. I'm sure you'll tell me what it is later on. But it is where you, as a family unit, are solving something together.
Yeah.
Okay, when you get into that thing, you get set of clues, and you go over there and you try to solve it. And so it can have the Sherlock Holmes motif or the Agatha Christie motif or whatever it may be. And you're kind of solving things together. Again, there's a community or a family thing involved, but it's also an event. So now we are kind of set with the analysis. We've kind of looked at it from various perspectives,
Yeah.
because what we are realizing that a film is not a film. We are going in for the theater experience,
Yeah.
right? So
True.
how can we change the theater experience?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, theater has always been theater because it was a utilitarian experience. It was in the earlier days, it was something that could bring the movies to the mainstream, to
Yeah,
the audience. It was the only source available. But now, since the movies have already been, become a utility in themselves because of
yeah,
OTT, right? Now it is time to make the theater experience into an experience. It is an occasion now. For example, it is almost like it is like a horse racing. It is like an art gallery opening. It is those exclusive events that you have to mark special occasions, right? You only do it with your family. You only do it to celebrate Valentine's Day. You only do it to celebrate a reunion with your friends. Now, now imagine all the engineering people after 15 years, they go and watch Three Idiots in that movie, a special reunion Three Idiots showing, right? So, if those kinds of, you see, you are never going to mark the kind of footfall that you had at one point. That is gone. Like that dream is gone. Even by year, your theaters are seeing, at least in India, 16% of decline is happening. All over the world, 8% decline is happening in the theater footfall, and that's only going to increase as more and more digital nativity happens, more mobile penetration happens, more OTT prices get eased up. So now is the time to revamp what you stand for. You are an event, you are an occasion, you are special. Bring that special and exclusivity thing out now.
and this is where I think the whole concept of Treasure Island, which I kind of alluded to, comes in the thing. So Treasure Island is a Robert Louis Stevenson story, and I don't want to bore the younger generation, which is like wanting to get ahead in life and ambitious and wanting immediate solutions, to actually go and see or rather read the story or see the film or anything of that sort. But maybe you can go to ChatGPT and actually understand what the story is. Now here, the reason why I took Treasure Island is that, imagine if you treat each movie as a treasure hunting experience,
Hmm.
or something which is very, very immersive. So the moment you step in the theater, you are actually part and parcel of that movie. So the Treasure Island is just a metaphor. But what I'm actually talking about is that, imagine the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Which is
Hmm.
like this big film, which was, can certainly be converted into a treasure hunt. Okay, it can certainly be converted into a treasure hunt. You can have amazing things that are happening within the theater, but not just the hall, but within the theater or mall complex. You can actually kind of seed things, you can gamify things, and there are so many ideas that can come in, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing would be to treat the film as just the central but not the only part of the whole experience, and
Yeah.
you have to probably extend the whole thing out into becoming a story, into becoming an immersive experience. And you know where this becomes really really evident is in Le Cirque du Soleil. So Le Cirque du Soleil was sorted out by it's a French Canadian company, and for those people who didn't know a little bit about Le Cirque du Soleil, it is nothing but a circus event which is created for adults. So if I look at the Blue Ocean framework, the way in which it was done was to actually revive a dying industry, which was the circus industry. So the circus industry had a lot of problems. It had, hard benches, elephant shitting everywhere, and animal activists protesting against animal acts and stuff like that. And they kind of said, okay, what if we change the TG? What if we change the target group completely? Instead of children, let's make it adults, because children were going and playing games instead of actually looking at circuses. So
Yeah.
they changed the whole thing. They made it into a theme. They used the 4-action framework, which was there in the Blue Ocean strategy, which is you create something, you reduce something, you raise something, you eliminate something. But then it just stood out as a different animal. So then my question to you, Janavi, is there something that we can create? Is there something that you can raise? Is there something that you can reduce? And is there something that you can completely eliminate from the theater experience?
Yeah, I think this is where the theater industry as a whole needs to change its story, right? What does
Hmm.
it stand for? Like brilliant examples that you brought in, right? Both of them, these they are immersive experiences. Now, for example, you go to a Halloween party. It is not about the costumes. It is not about a
No.
band that's playing, right? But these are the things that bring everything together. Now, imagine a theater where Pirates of the Caribbean is showing, and everybody is allowed to go in dressed up as their favorite character. And there's, inside you get those fake sword props and all of that. And while Johnny Depp is doing his dialogues, somebody is standing there and actually just enacting the same thing. So that's a very exciting experience that you can't get at home.
Yes.
Like you would look
Yeah.
like a real idiot if you're standing in front of your TV and doing the same thing. But in a theater where everybody is doing that, even introverts would find their niche. It'll become like a play acting immersive experience sort of thing. This is where the entire story needs to be shifted. You need to take a step back, and you're very right. Like look at the movie as a central theme that's playing, but not something that people come for overall.
Here's something that you can completely eliminate, by the way. Okay. And what you can eliminate is the film itself. And let me explain what I mean. Okay.
Okay.
So if you saw the Taylor Swift eras thing, and I'm no Swifty or I'm not particularly fond of that sort of music, but if you saw what the eras thing was, it was not a film. It was more or less a documentary of all of her concerts. And what was happening was that Swifties were going out and actually enjoying that as an experience, and dancing and swaying to the music in a theater. So it was as if they had gone to a concert
Hmm.
rather than actually see a film, right? So you can potentially reduce the film or completely eliminate it using the 4-action framework, and you can create a completely new kind of community experience,
Hmm.
and you can raise the amount of gamification that's there. And maybe what you can do is just forget about the expensive popcorn, to be honest. If I was a young ambitious person trying to revive the theater industry,
Hmm.
okay, if I was a young ambitious, I would certainly use the 4-action framework based upon the film that I'm actually marketing, or that I'm responsible for. So if I look at a non-political film, Janavi, because then that would get get us into hot water. But if I had to look at, let's say, an Avengers film,
Hmm.
okay, what can we create? What can we create? If using the 4-action framework to enhance the whole theater experience in the whole thing. What do you think as a millennial?
Okay, one thing that is already happening is the 4D and 10D kind of an effects.
Correct. Yeah.
But,
So that is part of raise, right? So
yeah.
that is raising. So you're raising the thing. So that is covered by 4D and whatever, right? So beautiful example, but that's not create. That's raise. That's raising the experience of the film itself. So that's perfect, right? Well, create, what you can do is actually get people who are kind of dressed up as characters, who or special appearances from movie stars or famous people, even extras within that film, coming in and gracing theaters, or doing some autograph signing or whatever. I know it sounds lame, but it's still something which goes beyond the film, and you're creating an experience, right?
Okay, but here's a question. Like if it's some movie that you've already watched, then
Hmm.
then cool, this sort of stuff works. But if it's a new movie, something that you haven't watched, all of this becomes a distraction, right? Because then you want to watch the movie.
I'm saying that nobody is going there to watch the movie. Everyone's going there for the community bonding experience. I'll tell you where I'm coming from. So if you see the end of any Avengers film or something, you'll see some clip that is coming in to actually like a trailer, which
Yeah.
actually allows people to see, okay, what's next. Now
Yeah.
this is a creation. This is a creation. Okay, people wait for the final titles to happen, and then they're waiting for the next thing to come in. So that's an innovation, isn't it? That's something that goes beyond the film. So it's not the film. It's actually you're waiting and seeing how the character arcs develop.
Like the special appearance of Stanley, it's always there and people keep on watching for it.
I would actually get rid of the interval. I would eliminate the interval.
People want to go to the washroom, they'll kill you.
I'm not too sure, in the sense that the interval comes across as a jarring thing, right? Because we are now so used to tech, and we are so used to it not working out. So I'm just saying, look, I'm saying explore the ability
Yeah.
to just eliminate a few things. I would certainly reduce the expensive snacks. I'm not too sure about the expensive
Yeah.
snacks
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, I mean, I know it's a very big business. Like in 1 year, it's brought PVR Inox 2000 crore. But at the end of the day, what I mean, it might be something that's giving you an incremental value right now because your profits are dwindling, but it's taking away from the entire experience, and that's why the entire industry in itself is dying. So if your theater shuts down, you're not going to get money from your popcorn. Right?
Yeah. I remember, Janavi, and now this is something which you're going to hate me for, but as a teacher at Micah, one of the things that I did was I taught project management through movies. So one of the things that I did was I started a WhatsApp group. Okay, and bear with me as I give my boring old story as a professor. I started a WhatsApp group wherein I, as a professor, was sitting in the Micah amphitheater and I was asking people questions while they were seeing the film. Okay, and they were answering because I knew about divided attention and I knew that the way in which they would understand. So we were looking at Apollo 13 and stuff like that. I won't get into the boring details of the film and the connection to project management, but the fact that it became suddenly a gamified experience, right? So now, not that I'm trying to teach people who go and see a film, but what I'm certainly saying is that you could potentially actually have an app that enhances the experience for yourself as you're seeing the film in some meaningful way or the other. I'm not too sure whether you can do it for every film or whether it can be the same formula per film, but I think that there is something there.
So there are drive-through theaters. Right?
Yes,
The best
drive-in theaters. Yes,
drive-in theaters. Yes, sorry. The best part is you can move around, you can do your activity, you can just sit around and watch the movie, you can talk, you can do whatever you want to, right? And there are stalls of food all around, right? So now in theaters, you know that there are just popcorns over there. But imagine if this is actually like a community mela where the movie is playing
beautiful.
on, and there are stalls of different. There's somebody selling peanut butter, there's somebody selling chaat or whatever, and maybe homemade stuff, maybe small entrepreneurs who are doing that. It becomes like an immersive experience. So I'm not just going there for the movie. I buy that, I go for the movie. If I'm getting bored, I just go out, get myself a snack, and then come back in. So there's nobody telling me to shut up and sit down, but it's like a very free sort of a thing. It's an evening, it's 3 hours of whatever the hell I want to do there.
That's lovely. Now you're getting on with the program. I'm sure that Janavi the viewer would be hating Janavi the marketer at this point in time because she won't like people just milling around and getting peanut butter sandwiches while she's trying to focus on the Bengal files or something. But having said that, I think that there is something there when you look at the whole theater experience. So what are we saying? What are we saying to people who are looking at this? If I had to extrapolate this into reviving let's say a dying industry, I think first of all you got to reframe it, right? So if you're reframing it saying, okay, now it has seen its heyday, okay, it's and now the sun is setting, and what you might want to do is look at it as a sort of a hobby sort of thing or a niche sort of thing and try and treat it like that. The second thing is, can I then, because I'm treating it like that, can I use the 4 action framework from Blue Ocean Strategy and do something completely different? I think what we were doing was brainstorming about some half-baked ideas
Yeah.
about how things can improve. But I think for a young, ambitious, growth-oriented manager or an executive who's trying to make a splash for himself or herself in this particular industry or even other industries, the key is to reframe, and the key is to actually kind of use a framework like this that allows you to put a story in somewhere.
Yeah. You have first of all, you have to reframe your own mindset, right? It's not just the industry that's seeing a shift. Don't just keep on, put in the marketing money just to get people on board. Maybe make the kind of films that get more people there in the theater.
Yeah.
At some point, even that is going to die out. These are just very small tactics that everybody knows that you are doing to keep
Yeah.
flame on in a dying candle,
Absolutely.
right? So at some
Yes.
point, it's just going to go out with a gust of wind. So
Yes.
you still have the money to do it, right? You still have
Yeah.
the capital to do it. So this is a time ripe enough to take a step back, look at the things that were very obvious at one point, and see what you are missing in those obvious things. everything that was obvious about theater, that people go for the movie, people go for the theater, people like to purchase that popcorn because it's a novel experience, all of that is now counterintuitive. These are
Yes.
three things that people absolutely hate now.
Yes.
And these are the three things that have perhaps been the least friction points for switching to OTT from
Yes.
theater. So whatever you think is very obvious right now, completely switch it.
Yeah.
Right?
So
That is
don't play the usual boring old
exactly
conventional marketing playbook and try to figure out
playing
how
the
to innovate. Yeah.
playing the contradictions now. Right? And
Lovely.
that is how you reframe things.
Lovely. On that happy note, let us stop. Let us stop while we are ahead.